I call the Commerce, Finance, and Policy Committee to order on Wednesday, March 10th of 2026. Quorum is present. Representative, the first motion of the day is approval of the minutes from Tuesday, March 5th, 2026. Representative Elkins, Co-Chair, or Vice Chair Elkins, have you had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, Madam Chair, these look good. I will move their approval.
All right. Representative Elkins moves the minutes for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. All right. So first up on the agenda today is Representative Hanson, House File 1606. Representative Hanson, we'll let you get up there and then move your bill to Judiciary and Civil Law. And just a reminder that we did hear testimony on this bill, so this is one of those that we laid over to work on and now is coming back so that we can move it out of committee. And welcome to the committee, Representative Bonner as well. All right, Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee. We have House File 1606 before us again, and so thank you for allowing me a chance to come back up here and get this bill moving through. I do have a DE amendment I would like to move.
All right, Representative Hanson moves to adopt the DE amendment to the bill to get it in the shape the author would like. Any discussion to the DE? Would you like to explain the DE and a little bit about the changes that were made since last time we heard it?
Thank you, Chair. The DE reflects negotiations with folks like Adobe and others who had some questions about just some of the definitions that we mentioned. And so we have found some agreement here and are excited to continue to work on this if anyone else brings up questions, but this is just the reflection of latest negotiations with the impacted partners.
Is there any discussion to the amendment? All right, Representative Hanson moves to adopt the DE amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. All right. So since we've already had testimony, we have, is there any discussion to this bill? I know Representative Bonner, would you like to say a few words? I know you've worked on this as well.
Thank you. I didn't have a formal prepared statement, but I just wanted to say, from the perspective of this bill, this is an issue that's been sort of lingering for quite some time. For those of you in the room who have not already heard this, I was actually the victim of this form of, or this issue almost 20 years ago. And in that time, the technology has improved and gotten exponentially better. And what we know is that about 99% of the content being generated in these non-consensual sexual images is of women and minor girls. The amount of content in circles dealing with underage children has exploded 400, 500% within under a year. It is being openly traded in circles. And I think that getting a handle on this technology and making sure that that we are using our resources to regulate and to put guardrails around this type of technology is significant. We do not want to see the day when this type of content is acceptable fodder. And so we are here today to try and work on getting those guardrails in place to protect women and children.
Thank you. Any further discussion to the bill? Representative Hanson, closing thoughts?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for making this an easy morning for me, committee members. I appreciate that. We will see you at Judiciary if you're on that committee, and if you have any questions in the meantime, please talk to me about them. I know there's some questions from last year that I am prepared to address, and so if you heard something last year, just know that it is on my radar, and we're working on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Representative Hanson moves that House File 1606 as amended be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. All right, you are on your way. Thank you. Next up, Representative Carroll. All right, Representative Carroll, welcome to the committee. I move to have House File 3733 before the committee, and we intend to move this bill to Ways and Means. So I'll make the motion to move this to Ways and Means. Representative Carroll, I understand there are no authors amendments, so would you like to introduce your bill?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I appreciate it.
Representative Carroll, can you move the mic closer?
yes.
He has a hard time picking it up in here.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Thank you, members. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. With me is Ron Elwood, Supervising Attorney and Legal Aid of Minnesota. Utility service in Minnesota, as in every other state, is a regulated commodity. Public utilities, municipal utilities, and cooperative electric associations have exclusive rights to sell utility services to customers. These customers cannot take that service, turn it around, mark it up, and resell it to someone else. Landlords, manufactured home park owners, and RV park owners naturally need to provide utilities to renters, residents, and campers. But these entities are not utilities. They cannot act like one. This redistribution to tenants, park residents, and campers must be a straight pass-through, no markups. Minnesota law makes this crystal clear in the case of landlords and manufactured home parks. Chapter 327C governs how this redistribution works in the manufactured home park space, for example. But while reselling and marking up utility service is against utility tariffs and is a violation of the exclusive service territory statutes, the law governing RV parks on this matter is silent. A camper who violates these laws and doctrine has no recourse. The Public Utility Commission or a city or cooperative electric association has no authority over an RV park owner or camper. This bill seeks to fill the gap in Minnesota law by providing the same statutory guidance to RV park owners that the law already provides to landlords and manufactured home park owners regarding the redistribution of utility service they buy from utilities companies. It governs the pass-through of utility service by RV park owner to RV campers to ensure that the RV park owner cannot mark up the service received by the utility. This bill has been vetted by a large group of stakeholders, and I'd like to thank them for their collaboration in crafting the language before you. And that includes, it's a long list, Xcel Energy, Otter Tail Energy, Minnesota Power Elite, Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association, Minnesota Rural Electric Association, Minnesota Department of Commerce, Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, and importantly, Hospitality Minnesota. I'd also like to thank Mr. Elwood for his guidance on this matter. There's no opposition to this bill, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And Mr. Elwood, are you here to testify or just answer questions?
Madam Chair, members, thank you. I appreciate Representative Carroll carrying this bill, and I'm just here to answer questions.
Wonderful. All right. Is there any discussion to the bill? Is there anybody in the, oh, Representative Katiza-Watun.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Carroll, for bringing this forward. I just want to clarify, so you mentioned manufactured homes, but the way that I'm reading the bill, like with the recreational camping, does this apply to kind of the more permanent manufactured home parks, or is this simply the recreational camping situations where folks, go for part of the year and they're not living as a permanent residence?
Thanks. I didn't want to hide from you.
Representative Carroll.
Thank you, Chair. I will defer to Mr. Elwood.
Mr. Elwood.
Madam Chair and Representative Katiza-Watun, so if you're a manufactured home park, you are governed under Chapter 327C, and there is a very extensive section under there, subdivision 4 of 04, 327C 04, which provides the guidance on how electricity, gas is passed through to the residents. If you're a landlord, you are governed by 504, Chapter 504B, Section 216 of that chapter. Similarly, it tells how to pass it through. 327, which governs our RV parks, is silent. So basically, what this bill does is bring the RV park in the same league as the other two and make them just parallel in terms of how the utilities are passed through.
Thank you. Representative Reimer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, so if you or Mr. Elwood could maybe talk about just how prevalent this is for RV parks, like how much are, not RV parks, campgrounds, because we just got clarification that someone who has a permanent residence are beholden to a set of statutes that I would be as a single-family homeowner, basically. But with these campgrounds, do we have any sense for how big of a problem this is, or how much the average upcharge is on some of these electrical utilities?
Again, I'll defer to Mr.
Mr. Elwood?
Madam Chair and Representative Reimer, so I couldn't tell you exactly what the universe is, but I can tell you that the reason this bill is here is because we've gotten a number of complaints about that. And I think the poster child is what we got last year, is in Otter Tail service territory, where one of the RV park owners marked up Otter Tail's utility service by 400% to the camper. And so, since we have these very clear guidance to manufactured home park owners and landlords, this is completely analogous. It's the same thing. And so it seemed like time was ripe to just make everything parallel across the board.
Representative Reimer?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Elwood, for that response. Yeah, I think for me, when I stay at like a hotel, those costs, you know, the average electricity cost is baked into, you know, the rent that you're paying for that room. Are these, because I'm not a huge camper, right, are these costs line itemed? Are you seeing on your bill that your energy cost was so much during the time that you stay there?
Mr. Elwood?
Madam Chair, Representative, my understanding is there's a lot rent for the campgrounds, and then there's a separate utility charge. I haven't seen the bill, so I couldn't tell you exactly to answer your question precisely, because I don't really know. But that's how we knew, because there was a separate charge for the electricity, and this camper obviously had some knowledge. Maybe they were an Otter Tail customer and knew that, wait a minute, I pay this in my home, and now it's 4 times as much here, what the heck? And so that's how that came about.
Representative Reimer?
Thank you, Chair. Just one more comment on that. Yeah, I think that because it's a private business that's invested in its electrical infrastructure and all sorts of other things, I'm naturally skeptical of a bill like this. When Representative Carroll brought up the manufactured home park is maybe part of this, obviously, like, I would feel different if it's a permanent residence, but these are campgrounds that have invested in that infrastructure. So still think that personally this bill probably needs some work. So thank you.
Representative Krisha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for bringing the bill up. Representative Carroll, a couple quick questions. Are these campers required to use these services, these campgrounds? Do they have a choice? To the representative.
Representative Carroll?
Madam Chair, Representative Krisha, I mean, like any, if you pull into a campground, you can choose to hook up to the electric that's provided by the park or not. So if you're not hooked up to the electricity, you probably won't get an electric bill.
Representative Krisha?
And thank you. And Representative Carroll, so to the testifiers, so you can also choose not to stay there.
I think, yeah, that's probably a fair assumption.
Yeah. Can I address that to the testifier, Madam Chair?
Representative Carroll or Mr. Elwood?
Mr. Elwood, I think the answer is obvious, but I'll let Mr. Elwood answer.
Madam Chair, Representative Krisha, of course, you can decide not to go to this campground or that campground or not go camping at all. It's there's nothing requiring anybody to go to a campground.
Thank you. Representative Katiza Mattoon?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
Am I done?
I thought you said one more question. So,
just
Representative Krisha?
That's fine. I think it's obvious. Representative Carroll, I won't be supporting your bill.
Representative Katiza Mattoon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it is peculiar, the line of questioning that we're going down when we have such a rich history of camping and an outdoor revelry here in the state of Minnesota. And I think it also is different that, these folks are not taking their RV to one of our state parks. It might be, a private campground. I think the idea is that because electricity specifically is very heavily regulated in the state of Minnesota and across the country, that people who want to enjoy the outdoors in the state of Minnesota should not be charged 400% more than they would be charged at a state campground or in their private residence or elsewhere. I do spend some time in Representative Nelson's district near Hinckley. My sister-in-law has a permanent camper cabin in that area at Pathfinder Resort. And so I'm thinking, people who, it's a more applicable potentially for people to understand that it's more of a permanent, like she doesn't move her camper every year. It's hooked up to the utilities, it's hooked up to water. She pays monthly for these hookups. And I think that that's very different than somebody just driving into an RV park and maybe staying for a weekend. Although this bill would cover both of those situations the way that I'm understanding it. So I appreciate the.
Thank you, Representative Katiza-Watun. Mr. Elwood or Representative Carroll, if I were to Airbnb my cabin, could I charge 400% more for the electricity that the people staying in my cabin could? Mr. Elwood?
Yeah, I would say no, but I'll let Mr. Elwood answer.
Madam Chair and members, typically, and I think this is the answer to Representative Reimer's concerns, is that, when you, in situations like that, to cover your costs and your infrastructure, in this case, the utilities, that would be put in the lot rent. And that, so it's the actual utility bill that somebody passes, the bottom line here is that none of these entities are utilities. And they can't behave like utilities. If they wanted to charge that kind of money, then they would be regulated. They should go to the Public Utilities Commission like Excel, like in this case, Otter Tail comes to the commission and says, here's what we need. We're a regulated utility. We have the exclusive right to provide electricity to customers, and nobody else can do that. If they want to pass it along, they have to pass it along at the same price that they buy it from. If they need to cover their costs of doing business, well, there's easily ways to do that. You simply put it in this case, you'd put it in the rent or the cost of for the camper to hook up to the pad, to sit in the pad. So, I don't think there's a loss of money here. Nobody's losing any money. It's just making sure that people aren't being gouged, and that's what this bill is all about.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. I think, as we've been trying to kind of set a base in this committee, the biggest thing that we'd like to look at is affordability. And, even going camping should be affordable, and you shouldn't be taken advantage of to do that. And so, this is just another kind of maybe smaller example of how, every penny counts, and every penny towards profit counts, I guess. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members, Representative Carroll. Family of 8, the Heinzmans are, and we are lucky enough to have a fifth wheel, and we've traveled quite a lot in the last, 5-6 years. And there's a couple of things we've observed at campgrounds. We prefer dispersed camping whenever we can, whether it's federal land or what have you. That works out really well. But in campgrounds, it's amazing how often I've watched as folks will leave their campsite and absolutely everything, every air conditioner, every light is left on. It's at those campsites where there's just a flat fee. That's it. That's where you see that happen. And they're going to be gone in many cases all day, and everything's running. I'm assuming that you've taken that into account and decided that's not an issue, but I'm just going to bring it up in case maybe it hasn't been considered. If you are at a campsite where there is a fee for electricity, which the 400% sounds really bad, but what are we talking about in terms of actual dollars? And I think that when you have examples of those that see the flat rate and just decide to leave all the air conditioners or all the heat or all the whatever it might be at the highest level, that is probably not a great use of power. And when you come back to your campsite, as we do, because we shut the power to a minimal load and we kick on the AC, 5-10 minutes, it's fine. You don't need to leave those things running. So I can see how, when you see that 400% increase, it sounds like we need to write a bill. But when you think about what is happening at the campsite, maybe we're not getting the whole picture today. And so, members, I just hope that we do have a chance to maybe talk more about this down the road. And if the testifier would like to respond, that'd be fine, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman. Sounds like that campground should change their business model and charge for the electricity. And I'm glad that you and your family are good stewards and shut off all the unnecessary items. Mr. Elwood.
Madam Chair, Representative Heisman, so in your example, if you were the camper and you're responsible and you're using, say, 20 kilowatt hours just to, because you're, whatever it is, so that, just for argument's sake. And the cost to the park owner is 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So they charge you, do the math. I can't, I'm a lawyer, I don't do math. So the park owner is recouping exactly the amount of money that the park owner is paying to the utility. If, on the other hand, you have an irresponsible person who's using 200 kilowatt hours, they're still being charged the 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and the park owner is being compensated precisely for what they're paying and they're using. So there's no loss of money to the park, to the RV park owner. That's what this bill is about. But instead, in these cases, without this statute, that park owner could charge you $5 a kilowatt hour. And that seems, first of all, it's against the utility tariff, number one. That's primarily, the other point to be made here is, under tariffs, that is improper, that's illegal, but there's no ability to enforce it because the PUC, nobody has authority over this. So that's what this is about. There's no loss of money, nobody's taking a loss here. It's just they're getting the amount of money that they're paying to the utility, recouping it from the camper, and that's essentially it.
Representative Heinzman, one more quick one.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Really just a comment. I think, Representative Carroll, the way this bill is drafted, number one, it incentivizes people to use significantly more power than they actually need. And number two, it doesn't give those in that business model the opportunity to recover their costs. And some of those investments are significant in putting power at each of these locations and sites. I think it's a somewhat anti-commerce bill. So I'd say go back to the drawing board. There's something there, but I don't think this is the way to do it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman. I think it's been pretty clear that the lot fees are how they can recoup the infrastructure costs and that they are still paying for the power that they're using. Representative Finke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just keep it quick. Thank you for your bill, gentlemen. I used to be a person many lifetimes ago who worked in energy policy, and I just want to say I'm sorry that your bill is being so maligned. It says right here that you charge for the electricity that is being used. Electricity generation is a regulated monopoly. The idea that we are going to take a product that is regulated and offer a resale value that is higher is bananas. We do not want to do that. We cannot do that. This is a different market. It is not a free market. It is a regulated market, and we should not misunderstand the thing that is happening here. I think it's a really important, easy bill. Appreciate your time.
Chair O'Driscoll, any final thoughts?
No, Madam Chair. Again, you've heard from our members, doesn't seem to be a lot of support for the concept. And I would ask maybe that we consider laying it over, see if there's a way we can find a compromise. Otherwise, I'm not sure that this one's going to have the support that's necessary to move it from this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final thoughts, Representative Carroll?
Thank you, Chair. We think it's a good bill. It's unfortunate some members on this side don't seem to see it that way, even though all the industry is behind it. There has been no opposition to it. But I appreciate your thoughts and your comments, and I ask you to move it on. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I will move the bill as, has it been amended? Okay, I will move the bill to Ways and Means. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No. Madam Chair, division.
I was waiting. Call the roll, please.
Yeah, you call roll.
Oh, the clerk will take the roll.
Co-Chair Koegel.
Aye.
Koegel, aye. Co-Chair O'Driscoll.
Madam Chair, point of parliamentary inquiry.
Yes?
This wasn't a roll call, this was division, so people can simply raise their hands, yes
Oh,
or
yeah.
no.
Oh, thank you. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed? The motion being 10 to 10, it does not prevail. Representative Carroll, I'll lay the bill over. All right.
Thank you, Chair.
Next on the calendar is House File. Do we have Representative Howard with us? No?
Madam Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
Yes?
On the vote, you said you laid the bill over. I thought the bill had failed on a vote.
But then the bill, from my understanding of the rules, the bill can be laid over. Maybe nonpartisan can clarify?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
procedurally, the vote did fail, but since it has not left the committee, at some point in the future, the committee could reconsider this if it gets calendared again, if there's work on it, or the committee wants to take it up again. So it still remains in the possession of this committee, but it does not move out.
So it's laid over? That's correct?
The motion was not to lay it over. The motion was actually to have a vote, but since it didn't move out, it stays in the possession of the committee and could be recalendared, reconsidered at some point in the future by the committee.
Thank you.
But I'm not the nonpartisan staff, so I would ask if you have questions that you maybe refer to nonpartisan staff for confirmation and not take me at my word on it.
Ms. Pompu?
Chair Koegel, Chair O'Driscoll seems to have a good understanding of the appropriate procedure.
What was that?
I said Chair O'Driscoll seems to have a good understanding of the appropriate procedure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair O'Driscoll. All right. Do we have Representative Howard with us yet? I guess then we have Representative Norris and then my bill. So maybe we just move to, what was that? Okay. We will move to my bill. So I will hand the gavel over to Representative Elkins.
Good.
Okay.
You can move over to my chair if you'd like.
Yeah, I think I will because it's really hard to see from here. Okay, the next bill up is House File 4071. Chair Koegel, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will move that House File 4071 be laid over.
Okay, thank you.
And I forgot my notes up there, so I would just like to hand it over to my testifier.
Thank you. I see Mr. Smith is at the desk, so take it away.
Co-chairs O'Driscoll and Elkins, members of the committee, my name is Sam Smith, and I'm here to testify on House File 4071, On behalf of the Department of Commerce, the Department of Commerce is committed to promoting strong consumer protections and regulatory consistency for all the businesses that we regulate. And this policy proposal on financial institutions is a step in that direction. The department's FI policy bill incorporates North American Securities Administrators Association, or NASA, model rules governing cybersecurity, business continuity, and client access for investment advisors. This calls upon those folks to establish, maintain, and enforce policies and procedures pertaining to business continuity, success planning, physical security, and cybersecurity, delivering a privacy policy to clients on a regular basis, on an annual basis, and not accessing a client's account by using the client's own unique identifying information, including but not limited to the client's username and password. The NASA broker-dealer and agent on dishonest or unethical business practices model law. This calls for this lists a number of acts or practices which are contrary to the high standards of commercial honor and just and equitable principles of trade. This includes things like executing a transaction on behalf of a customer without the customer's authorization, entering into a transaction with or for a customer at a price that is not reasonably related to the security's current market price, or receiving unreasonable commission or profit. Finally, the third NASA Model Act is around investment crowdfunding. This is a process for raising funds from a large number of individuals who each invest. Crowdfunding campaigns often use an online intermediary platform and are typically conducted within a limited time frame. The Crowdfunding Model Act would require notice filing of the forms filed with the SEC or a consent to service process. This is important because a notice filing requirement in connection with these offerings would allow the department to monitor and provide consumer protection to Minnesota investors. These model acts were all developed through a committee process by NASA members, go through a public comment process, and then are voted on by NASA members, and are then available to be adopted by state regulators. In addition to these model rules, there are also technical changes around franchise registration and authorization for expedited rulemaking to address inconsistencies in existing rules governing certain real estate transactions. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions for the chair or Mr. Smith? Chair O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the first time I've seen this legislation, and oftentimes in the past, the tradition has been that the department would end up coming by and visiting with at least the chairs or the leads on the committee on this. And so I do have a series of questions to ask Mr. Smith, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, how big of an issue is crowdfunding in the state of Minnesota, and why do we need regulation?
Madam Chair, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have been the recipient and the host of a crowdfunding, and so I think it's very prevalent, at least in my experiences, but I will hand it over to Mr. Smith for the technical legal stuff.
Chair O'Driscoll, this crowdfunding rule was adopted in 2016, and we are currently going through an effort to review our NASA model regulations and modernize and adopt them as necessary. We haven't offered to prioritize this in the past, but we know it is an important practice, and we see some consumer protection angles that we want to be getting here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, oftentimes the department will come when there's additional duties and tasks that are being added to the department's list of duties, whether they are coming organically through the legislature or coming from the department itself. How much additional funding do you anticipate that the department will need in order to continue to execute what you have in this bill?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Elkins, Chair O'Driscoll, we don't anticipate any additional costs here, and where necessary, we'll absorb them.
Chair O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Smith, are there any additional continuing education requirements that might be necessary in this bill?
Mr. Smith.
Chair Elkins, Chair O'Driscoll, not that I'm aware of, but I have not contemplated the interactions between CEs in this proposal at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that should provide great comfort to Chair Davids. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, no more questions at this
Okay,
time.
thank you. Other members? This is an easy one then. Would you like to make any closing comments, Madam Chair?
Just thank you, and I will move that House File 4071 be laid over for possible inclusion.
Okay, it's laid over.
All right. So for the next item of business before us, we have House File 743. I will move that Representative Howard intends to move this bill to Health, Finance, and Policy, and the Policy Committee. So Representative Howard, would you like to introduce your bill?
Thank you, Chair Koegel, Chair O'Driscoll, members of the committee. In introducing House File 743, I want to invite every member to imagine themselves in the doctor's office with a close loved one. Perhaps it's your son or your daughter. And imagine that your son, your daughter, your family member has a chronic medical condition, one that won't go away without proper medical care and proper medication. Now, imagine that after months or years, you found the perfect medication that manages that condition, that allows your family to have peace of mind, that you're not going to wake up in the middle of the night and have to rush to the hospital, that you know that your son or daughters are going to be able to go to school and learn and be healthy and happy. You're at the doctor's appointment with your doctor for a regular routine checkup and to reapprove this medication that is so essential to your lives. Now I want you to imagine an insurance agent busts through the door like the Kool-Aid man and says, "Hold up. Not so fast. We want you to try a different medication." And you and your doctor look at each other befuddled, saying, "Why? We found the perfect medication that works for us." And the insurance company said, "I don't know about all that medicine stuff, but this drug will be cheaper." And the patient asks, or you're asking, "Cheaper for us?" "Well, not necessarily. It's definitely cheaper for us, the insurance company. And we want you to try this medication." You and your doctor ask, "Well, what if it doesn't work? We've tried really hard to get on this medication." And the insurance agent says, "Well, if you end up in the hospital, come back to us. We can reevaluate. But you have to fail on this medication before you can be on the medication that you and your doctor agreed to." And exits the room, leaving you and your doctor staring at each other befuddled. And that's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it is what is happening in doctors' offices with patients all across the state and country. It's a practice called step therapy, known as fail first, where insurance companies force patients to fail a medication first. And this bill specifically would prohibit health insurance companies from using step therapy or fail first to exclude coverage of prescription insulin. Members, this legislature, I'm very proud, on a bipartisan basis in a divided legislature, passed nation-leading efforts to make sure that Minnesotans can stay safe and get the insulin they need to survive. And so this is a follow-on to that important bipartisan work. As folks may know, if you have type 1 diabetes, insulin is like oxygen. You need it to survive. And all insulins aren't created equal. Some insulins work better, some not so, and we believe that medical doctors and patients should have the final say about which medication they're taking, not insurance companies. And the reality is, being on the wrong insulin can have catastrophic health consequences. Folks can end up in the hospital with diabetic ketoacidosis or other conditions. So this is life and death. And we believe doctors, not insurance companies, should have the final say. And as I mentioned, we've worked on this issue on a bipartisan basis. I see no reason why we can't again today, and would encourage a yes vote and welcome testimony.
And I would just like to note, too, that there is a fiscal note in the packet. With that, I will now proceed, we'll now proceed to public testimony. First up on the list is Cody Holliday followed by Dr. Eduardo Colon. Welcome to the committee. If you could just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Chair O'Driscoll, members of the committee. My name is Cody Holliday. I am here on behalf of the American Diabetes Association. The ADA's mission is to prevent and cure diabetes and to improve the lives of all affected by diabetes. We lead the fight against the deadly consequences of diabetes and advocate for those affected by diabetes. We appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in support of House File 743 and thank Representative Howard for introducing this legislation. Insulin treatments vary significantly for people living with diabetes. In order to most effectively treat this disease, it's critical that we ensure that patients have timely access to the most effective treatments. Step therapy requirements can lead individuals to use medications that may be ineffective or cause adverse effects before they can access the prescribed insulin that works best for their specific condition. This bill ensures that providers, not insurers, have the final say in selecting the appropriate insulin. Diabetes is a chronic condition that requires precise management, and unnecessary delays, including step therapy overrides, can cause short-term emergencies or long-term damage to patients' health, including increased risks of heart disease, kidney failure, nerve damage, and blindness. We have heard stories from around the country, stories where patients allergic to certain insulins are developing rashes, even going into anaphylactic shock, and still not being able to access the insulins due to step therapy requirements. By bypassing the step therapy requirements for insulin, Minnesota can ensure that patient care is prioritized, enabling healthcare providers to prescribe the best insulin for each patient's unique needs. This shift will improve quality of life for individuals with diabetes and prevent unnecessary health risks, ultimately improving both patient outcomes and healthcare delivery. Minnesota has been a leader in implementing policies that help make insulin more widely accessible. Eliminating a step therapy protocol for insulin is another effective policy that can help patients access the right treatment at the right time, reduce health complications, and be cost-effective in managing diabetes. As reflected in the mandate review report from the Department of Commerce, no fiscal impact is projected for frail costs or to CGIP as a result of this legislation. And I do want to clarify that there was a question in the mandate review about coverage and the potential for this impacting coverage for all insulins. I will point to the legislation and say that it is our reading that this only impacts the step therapy requirements and does not mandate coverage of all insulins. Though if there is clarity needed for that, we would welcome an amendment and would consider that. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. We respectfully ask the committee to support House File 743. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Colon?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Eduardo Colon, and I'm here to testify as a person living with diabetes and a volunteer member of the American Diabetes Association's Advocacy Committee. I developed type 1 diabetes at age 21. That's when my pancreas stopped producing insulin, and I'm currently 72 years old. I've practiced medicine since 1979, and the management of my diabetes has required very close scrutiny and adaptation over the course of both my training and my practice. My daily life prior to my recent retirement included variable schedules, unpredictable changes in activity levels, variable meal times, and times of low activity when I was engaged in administrative activities. I was taught early on that good control of my blood sugar would have a positive impact on my life and reduce the risk of serious complications. This is now verified by rigorous scientific data. In order to strive for this control, I have relied on my relationship with my physician, and over time, I have required multiple changes in my insulin types, from those that last longer throughout the whole day to very short onset of action and to those in between. Achieving a stable blood sugar is an ongoing challenge still. Arbitrary determinations of which insulin type will be available to me can have serious consequences. Low blood sugars, which are life-threatening, high blood sugars, which create long-term complications, or ketoacidosis, a medical emergency. Without insulin, I would not survive. With access to good care and insulin, I have achieved a productive life and continue to strive for minimizing the potentially devastating consequences of this disease. This is close and dear to my heart, as many members of my family live with diabetes, including my daughter, who was recently diagnosed. One of my dear nieces is blind and has undergone 2 renal transplantations due to poor control and inadequate care. If I cannot fill my insulin prescription, my life is in immediate danger. If I cannot achieve good control, I can't function fully, and I'm exposed to serious long-term complications, as my niece has proved. I support HF 743 to ensure that any changes in my insulin are dictated by my physician based on my personal and clinical needs, not by a distant reviewer without awareness of the nuances of my care. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next up, we have Drew Utek, followed by Dan Andreessen. Welcome to the committee, Mr. Utek. If you could just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Drew Utek. I'm a senior at Rogers High School, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 8 years old. I'm here to urge you to support House File 743. Being a student living with type 1 diabetes is no easy task. Battling the high and low blood sugars that come with this unfortunate disease is a daily fight just to survive. Unfortunately, it becomes immensely more difficult when you are going through step therapy protocol for insulin. When I was a freshman, my family's insurance provider switched, and I was started on step therapy protocol. The insulin that insurance required me to switch to did not work effectively for me. Both my endocrinologist and I knew that the insulin I was forced to switch to didn't work for me, as I was required to be on it when I was first diagnosed, yet insurance required me to switch anyways. This led to many days of high blood sugar, which caused me to feel tired, irritated, unfocused, and on the worst days, become physically ill. My freshman year, I couldn't bring my blood sugar down after lunch one day. Because of this, I threw up in the bathroom after lunch, and I had to go home and miss my last 3 hours of school. Being a high schooler, especially a freshman, is hard enough without having to miss school because of step therapy protocol. I am lucky that after that experience, my endocrinologist fought hard with insurance to get me on insulin that works for me, and I haven't had an experience like that since. As a diabetic, it is heavily important that I am on insulin that works just so I can function every day. House File 743 will ensure that diabetics, including students like myself across the state, will never have to go through something like I have ever again. Thank you again for your time, and again, I urge you to support House File 743.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Andreessen?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Dan Andreessen with the Minnesota Council of Health Plans. As we listen to testimony and look at the bill language, I think we're still trying to understand how this will alleviate the concerns that are being expressed given current insurance practices in state-regulated markets, as well as language that's currently in statute regarding step therapy. None of our plan members use a step therapy protocol for insulin products. We cover 94% of the fully insured market, which is the only market that this regulation would apply to. We do wonder if the concerns are coming regarding coverage in the ERISA employer market, which this regulation would not apply to. If that is the case, what we recommend is for folks to contact their HR departments. The employer who is setting up that program or that health plan is the one that divides, creates the plan as well as utilization management for their drug formulary. And so we would encourage them to speak to see if they would change their plan. If this is regarding a Medicaid issue, that would be a question for DHS. They set the parameters for that program. Plans are hired for 80% of that market to help administer the program, but DHS controls what we cover. And that program is changing to start of next year where a single PBM is taking over that work. Secondly, you also want to mention that there is language in statute that provides step therapy protection. 62Q.184 requires health plans to have a process in place that will allow a provider to override a step therapy protocol if that was in place. This was enacted in 2018 for the fully insured market and then for Medicaid in 2019. So we're happy to talk with Representative Howard and the proponents of the bill to see where this is happening, but we are concerned about enacting legislation that may not solve the concerns that are being expressed and will create confusion within patients, insurance companies, and regulators down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andreessen. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to testify? Seeing none, I will move to member discussion. Any members like to discuss this bill? Okay, I would just like to say, thank you, Representative Howard. I know I have a friend who, when I first was elected, came to me and was like, hey, this is an issue. Every time I get a new plan through my employer, which they change it, it's not something that she elects to do, you know, she has to go through this step protocol. And she knows what drugs work for her. She, you know, she's been dealing with this her whole life. And so, you know, every time that happens, what kind of irreversible damage is happening to your body, and, you know, unnecessary just pain and, you know, not fun stuff. And so this was something that she addressed with me a long time ago. And so I'm really happy that, you know, we've made protections for this. And then also that we can make sure that doctors and their patients are the ones making these decisions and not insurance companies. And so, thank you very much. Representative O'Driscoll, or Chair O'Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Howard, we appreciate your work over the years, without question, on this important topic. And there has probably been no one in the legislature that, since I've been here, that has championed this like you have. So thank you for doing that. My concern today, and I think it's the concern of my team, is not the protocol and what you're trying to do. It's the fact that we have seen a number of mandates over the years that have gone out that have caused the cost of base insurance to increase over time. And the challenge that we have is every time we add another layer of mandates, costs go up. And I know this says that there may be minimal costs in different things, and I don't know that it necessarily reaches the broader group of people who may have diabetes that this could apply to because of the ERISA exemptions and some of the other kinds of things that may be out there, and the need for the federal programs to adopt this and as well for us with Medicare and Medicaid. And when I was a kid, we played a game called Don't Break the Camel's Back. And I don't even know if they have that game out anymore in the toy department of your local store, or on Amazon in the toy section, or wherever you would go these days to buy your children toys. But the premise behind that was there was a saddle that was in the back of the camel, and you'd put a stick in there, and eventually the last stick that went in there broke the camel's back. That was the idea of the name of the game and the adage. We, as Republicans, are very, very concerned about not putting more straws in that break the camel's back for mandates that are coming forward. We really want to make sure that insurance stays as affordable for people as we possibly can. A lot of folks will come in front of this committee and say, well, what's one more mandate? What's one more mandate? What's one more mandate? It may be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Our costs of insurance through MNsure for the individual market, where most of these people who have diabetes, I should say that this particular piece of legislation applies to those that are in the individual market or outside of the employment market or the self-insured market and the like. We're reaching a small group of people, the most expensive insurance that we have. As I've testified before in this committee, we have a situation where you can go to MNsure, the different medallion levels that are out there, and you can get a policy with an $8,000 or $9,000 deductible and $1,200 a month premiums and the like on there. My DFL friends bring up, is that really insurance at all? So by adding additional mandates to this, we cause that insurance to go up. And it may just be the straw that breaks the camel's back so that people can't afford insurance. And they miss out on routine kinds of screenings. They miss out on annual physicals because that money is not, that coverage is not there for them to be able to go to their healthcare provider because it has just become burdensome. And so our team is very conscious about adding any type of additional mandates that could drive the cost of insurance. As a matter of fact, we've also had a bill that we laid over in here that talks about bringing tools forward again for this committee and for the legislature to have available to talk about re-extending the reinsurance program that by department report saves between about 20 to 36% on insurance premiums for the individuals in the individual market. If that goes away, more straws that break the camel's back. And so, again, I thank you for your work, but I don't know that there's going to be support on this at this time. And Representative Howard, I would ask you to consider a layover on this bill for the reasons that we are trying to work on figuring out what we can do yet this session to try to put the next legislature in a spot that they can deal with these kinds of issues as a team when we reassemble in January of 2027. Otherwise, I fear that there may be an outcome that you're not going to be too excited about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair O'Driscoll. Representative Howard?
Chair Koegel, Representative Driscoll, thanks for your comments. You know, I'm comfortable with what the committee chair wants to do to move forward with this bill. Whether we vote on it or not, I hope we can work together this session to answer some of your questions. I would say based on the 62J report and the testimony from Mr. Andreessen, it seems to indicate there would be no costs or very likely no costs to insurance companies in this bill. We do have a fiscal note, you know, and I would hope that we could continue to work together to gather that information. You know, I appreciate that when you make a change here, it has interactions, but let's work together because the stories that were shared, I think, warrant us to take a serious look at this. And, you know, we've worked together on these issues in the past, and I think we have time this session to do that. So I would encourage us to continue to move the ball forward, but I would defer to the chair and this committee for how you want to proceed in terms of next steps.
Thank you, Chair Howard. And so what I'm going to propose is that we lay the bill over for now with the understanding that we will bring it back at another time to take a vote on it. That way we can have some good discussion and figure out what the actual return on the investment will be. Because I think one of the things that we failed to look at is how this will affect our bottom line in the long run. I'm a big believer in, you know, don't just throw a tarp over the roof, you know, fix the leak and put the shingles on. And so, and that's gonna stop the damage in the future, which costs less then. And so we really need to start thinking in a different way. We can't just look at it as the upfront capital costs of keeping our people healthy. You know, we need to start thinking about this long-term and looking at the things that we do today save us in the future. When you put a good pavement down, it's gonna last longer. Sorry, that's my transportation side coming in. But and I see Bagnoli over here just ignoring me. You know, so this, I really do want to work on this. And so what I would like to do is just lay the bill over with the understanding that we will take a vote on it within the next few committee hearings. Is that work for everybody? Yep. All right, with that then, I will change my motion to lay the bill over. Thank you, Representative Howard, and we're on our way. We'll keep working on it, so appreciate it. Now he's listening. All right, next up on the agenda for today is House File 2627.
That's your mom, Carl, or your husband?
Sometimes they're the same.
Oh, they're sweeter.
Yeah, that's
All right, Representative Norris, we have House File 2627 before the committee with the intent to move it to the Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee. This is a place that has been in my life for a long time, and I still see it whenever I go get my pedicure. So I would like to, I understand that there is an A1 Authors Amendment, and so I would like to move the A1 Authors Amendment to the bill to get it in the shape you would like. Would you please explain the amendment?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Koegel. The A1 amendment reflects some ongoing conversations that all of the stakeholders have been having. It changes some of the requirements to allow for the sale of a grandfathered business, as well as eliminating the requirement of disclosure of the breeder information in advertisements.
Thank you. Any discussion to the A1 amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. All right. So with that, we will move to our testifiers. First on the agenda is Aaron Zellhofer. Welcome to the
Chair
committee.
Koegel, if
Oh.
I could just do some brief introductory
Sure.
remarks
Yes.
first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Representative Norris. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Koegel. Chair Koegel and members of the committee, this House File 2627, is a bipartisan bill to protect consumers and prevent animal cruelty while preventing bad actors from coming into our state and avoiding shuttering anyone's existing business. For years, the pet store industry has trended away from selling live cats and dogs. Advocates have expressed concern about the welfare of animals sold through the few remaining stores that engage in this practice. This bill begins the process of ending these sales in our state by prohibiting any stores that don't currently sell dogs or cats from doing so. Importantly, this bill represents a compromise that grandfathers in the stores that currently engage in this practice. These stores will be able to continue selling dogs or cats, including to a new owner after, or under a new owner after the author's amendment that was just adopted, as long as they provide transparency about where they are sourcing their dogs and cats from. This compromise ensures no one loses their living or retirement plan, while also ensuring that these animals are sourced responsibly. It keeps bad actors out of our state while providing options for existing stores who are doing it the right way. And with that, Chair Koegel, I've got some testifiers.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. If you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, Chair Koegel, Co-Chair O'Driscoll. My name is Aaron Zellhofer, and I work for the Humane World for Animals. This legislation takes a practical, balanced approach that allows existing pet stores to continue selling puppies while preventing the expansion of a business model that depends on cruel puppy mills and consumer deception. This bill is modeled after language from Maine and Vermont. I know that there was some concern with the language from California. This bill and this language is not modeled after the California language. This legislation also prevents bad actors from coming into the state. This is a major problem. In Florida alone, a report was released from the Attorney General this year that showed sick dogs being sold, slick sales, and predatory lending at pet stores cost Floridians the tune of $25.1 million per year. We don't want that problem here in Minnesota. This legislation is fair, carefully crafted, compromised solution that protects animals, consumers, and existing business alike. The values of our pet-loving state simply cannot be reflected by leaving our market wide open to puppy mill outlets. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Michael Swanson. Would like to come to the and testify. Welcome to the committee. If you could just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Michael Swanson, owner of Four Paws and a Tail Pet Ranch, Inc. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the House Commerce, Finance, and Policy Committee. My name is Michael Swanson, and I'm the owner of Four Paws and a Tail, a small non-franchised pet store in Blaine that has been a reliable supplier of pets to loving families in the metro area for over 56 years. I'm here today with concerns about House File 2627. I believe the bill harms consumers, takes away consumer choice and where to purchase a puppy, and threatens the future of my business. Four Paws and a Tail is the last pet store in the metro area that offers puppies. We're a family-run business that has helped generations of Minnesotans find the right pet for the family. We provide a safe, welcoming environment where new pets can visit, ask questions, receive guidance on choosing the right puppy. Every puppy we place comes with a free vet exam, a health guarantee, and full transparency of its origin. Let me emphasize, state law currently requires pet dealers like me to supply the purchaser of a puppy with the breeder's information. We of course also rigorously follow all of Minnesota animals' welfare laws and work hard to set the standard for ethical and responsible pet placement. We've worked hard to build relationships with our breeders, many of whom are small family-run operations, and we take our responsibility to the animals and our customers very seriously. House File 2627 includes a so-called grandfathering provision that will allow existing stores to continue operating as long as breeder license numbers are posted in the store and as long as the pets come from a licensed breeder. I have some concerns that could lead to antagonism of the breeders or for my customers to go directly to the breeder instead of purchasing directly from me. But in terms of my ability to remain in operation, as long as I'm allowed to sell or relocate my store in the future, these amended measures are an improvement over previous versions of the bill. As I've already stated, I already disclose breeder information to all buyers of my puppies as required by law, by current law. The global organization Humane World for Animals, formerly known as HSUS, has made it clear they have a personal agenda against my store regardless of the care and transparency we provide. This bill unfortunately plays into that agenda at the expense of small businesses and Minnesota families seeking safe, trusted options as to where to buy a puppy for their family. While the bill has been improved from my perspective, I still feel it is anti-consumer choice for those who choose a pet store rather than trying to find a breeder or other random online seller of puppies. Please consider the real-world impact this legislation will have, not on me, but on consumer choice, and while not really doing anything for the animal welfare. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody from the public wishing to testify? Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Lauren Kelmet, and I represent the Pet Advocacy Network, the national voice of the responsible pet care community. Chair and members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. We respectfully urge you to vote no on House File 2627. California passed a statewide ban on retail pet sales in 2017 with the same goals as this bill, that this bill is trying to achieve, but the results have been deeply troubling. An LA Times investigation found that once regulated pet stores were removed from the market, a network of resellers quickly filled the gap. According to the paper, ex-cons and schemers replaced pet stores as middlemen, selling puppies through parking lots, online marketplaces, and other unregulated channels where there is little transparency or accountability. At the same time, the Better Business Bureau's scam tracker reported a 350% increase in puppy scams in the 2.5 years following the ban, as families increasingly turned to online sellers and were often defrauded or sold sick animals with absolutely no recourse. Only a handful of states have adopted statewide bans like this. I reference California specifically because it was the first state to pass one, and it provides the clearest real-world example of how policies like this actually play out over time. The lesson from California is simple. Eliminating regulated pet stores does not eliminate the demand for pets. It simply pushes that demand into less transparent markets where oversight is limited and consumers are more vulnerable. For these reasons, we respectfully urge you to vote no on House File 2627. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, we will move to member question, or actually, we have some amendments here. So Representative Heinzman, would you like to introduce your amendments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the author's amendment, I withdraw.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So with that, we will move to all of the amendments, Representative Heinzman? Oh.
Yes, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure I stayed on the list.
Yep, you're still on this. Okay. Thank you. Representative Heinzman, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, about, I don't know, it's coming up on 10 or 15 years, I guess. My daughters decided that they wanted to keep horses. And we have the space, we thought, marked out. It was going to be fine. For those of you who've kept horses, you know that it's a lot of work and there's things you're going to have to figure out. So one of the locations, the location we picked on day one was along a power line route that crosses our land along with the Paul Bunyan Trail. And this will connect, so just bear with me. That looked like it was going to be the best case scenario. It's 3 acres. We went out there, we put in a fence. I brought a 500-gallon water trough. We're good to go, right? Well, as it turns out, no. As a matter of fact, new horse owner not knowing, when you have direct sun, you have massive quantity of algae buildup in a tank. So I moved that tank into a shelter. The problem was, now I had hundreds and hundreds of people coming by every day on the Paul Bunyan Trail, and they don't see any water source. And suddenly my sheriff weekly is getting call after call after call. There's this horse owner out here who's not taking care of their animal. Some of y'all might not agree, some in the room might not agree that it's a similar scenario, but there's a lot of well-meaning people that were coming by my property and thought they were saving these horses from a terrible life, mistreatment or what have you, when in fact I had moved the water into a building so that it was clean and fresh, okay? I have great sympathy for the business owner in this case, while at the same time, Representative Norris, I get what you're trying to accomplish, and I appreciate taking the amendment or offering an amendment to get at this particular issue, but I do believe we're stepping into an area where, while we intend to do good, it may do, just as we heard in testimony, drive purchases further towards an unregulated model. And I hope that we're all very conscientious of that. I wound up having to move my horses out of that location into a different location because the calls were never going to stop, and the sheriff just said, please, Heinzman, would you do something else because this is driving us crazy. I shouldn't have had to do that. And I don't believe that we should be further regulating this industry in this way. But it is what it is, and I think that we're in a better place, Representative Norris, so I hope the bill satisfies the concerns of those folks that have, I would argue, targeted this business, and we can move on, and this will be the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Heinzman. Representative Hewitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Norris, does this in any way affect the reputable breeders in the state or anything like that?
Representative Norris?
Chair Koegel, Representative Hewitt, my understanding is that it does not have an impact on the breeders, but I will turn it over to the expert, Mr. Zellhofer, to elaborate on that.
Mr. Zellhofer?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative. Yes, the issue that is of concern is supply, and with the amendment that was just introduced about allowing for transparency to still be there, but not working with the other side on the advertising side of things, we believe that we've met a compromise on that information will be provided, but we've worked with the other side to come to a reasonable solution.
Representative Hewitt?
Madam Chair, one last question then. So to the author, Representative Norris again, it sounds like there might be space here for a possible amendment to make sure brokers don't exist in Minnesota, that the stores and that others are dealing directly with the reputable breeder. I don't know if you've thought about that, but Representative Heisman's discussion here, I think that would be a real good angle to try to get some compromise here to shut down anything before it starts or to make it similar to what the testifier said. So that's just my suggestion. Thank you, Representative Norris. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Finke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Norris, for your bill. I'm an author on this bill. I'm a big supporter of this bill. We heard it prior. So I have a couple quick questions, or quick questions, maybe not quick answers. But we heard that the bill used to model something from California, and now we've heard that the bill doesn't, and it models the Vermont legislation. I would love to hear, because the testimony really referenced what happened in California. And as I understand it, this bill is not doing that anymore. So I would love to hear just a little bit about that change from Norris or your testimony.
Representative Norris?
Chair Koegel, Representative Finke, did you, some uncertainty about who the question was directed to here?
I am happy to answer that question.
Mr. Zellhofer?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Finke. Yes, this model, let's be clear. The language in this bill is modeled after states that have included a grandfather clause. Those states are Maine. Those states are Vermont. Those states are many other states that have not modeled their language after the concerns of California. So if there are legitimate concerns about California, which is a longer conversation, this language is not modeled after California's language. It's modeled after the states that allow for a grandfather clause. The market will not change in Minnesota. So the problems that are alleged with California are not going to be problematic in the state because this language is not modeled after California's language.
And Chair Koegel, I can
Representative
add
Norris.
for Representative Finke just a little bit of the background and kind of the process we've gone through with this bill. So when it was first brought forward, it was just a blanket ban in the state. And then through conversations with stakeholders, including importantly, Mr. Swanson, we've tried to understand what his concerns were and address those in the bill. So we first added a grandfather clause that would allow existing businesses to continue the practice. Then we also changed that grandfather clause to allow those existing businesses to be sold to another owner. And then again, in the author's amendment I brought forward today, we rolled back some of the transparency requirements that were causing some heartburn as well, to try to make sure that we're appropriately tailoring this bill to achieve the public policy aims, which are protecting the consumer and protecting animal welfare.
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rep. Norris, thank you very much. I just want to say that I appreciate the work you have done on this bill. Sorry, I can't actually see you. And I appreciate you laying that out, right? Because we continually hear that there is a shared concern about what this is addressing, and we continually hear that there is a market problem if we pass something like this. And I just don't know how we can get to the point that we are at now, given what you have done with this bill, right? And we are compromising to a point that I think the bill's no longer really, in a normal world, I would not support the bill because the compromises don't achieve what I was hoping we would achieve, right? But that is the nature of this place, and you have done amazing and meticulous negotiation to get the bill to a position where we know it's not going to affect the last remaining shop in the market. So if we understand that the bill is doing something we can all agree on, and we understand that we are not going to have the negative ramifications to Mr. Swanson's job, I don't understand why we wouldn't finally move this forward. So I'm very hopeful that this version can move forward and that we can finally get this done and protect these animals.
Thank you. Representative Reimer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Norris, for bringing this bill forward. Just like looking over some of the language between pet dealer and pet shop. Pet shop, obviously being a physical retail store. I guess I'm concerned and I have questions about, at the heart of this bill is, are animals being treated humanely as they're being raised, right? And like, I think we can all want that and agree with it. My concern is that the equalization between physical shops that we have here in Minnesota, which I think we all want storefronts in our community that are thriving, and then when I look at e-commerce websites, right? How are we guaranteeing that pets that are sold into Minnesota from out of state, massive e-commerce platforms, does this bill address any of that? Or my concern, the heart of my concern is, are we treating him differently than we're treating your massive e-commerce stores?
Representative Norris. Mr. Zellhofer. My tongue gets stuck a lot, huh?
Thank you, Chair Koegel. Thank you, Representative Reimer. This language in the bill will not change the market. There is a grandfather clause. So the issues of e-commerce and all the others outside factors, this will not change. This has been a compromise. And more importantly, what this really would do is prevent really bad situations. What's happening in Florida with $25 million being led over to consumers in Florida in 1 year. So this is really a preventative measure, and it will not change the market as it is right now.
Representative Reimer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I understand the grandfather clause, just to be clear, but if I were to start Max's Pet Shop LLC based in Florida, and I was a national vendor in an e-commerce website, again, I just want to state my concern that I don't think this bill addresses this unequal commerce that will inevitably happen as we shift our focus more towards digital. You know, I buy stuff on Amazon all the time. I don't think the protections are in this bill to address where puppies would be coming from if they're sold online. Happy to be corrected on that.
Representative Norris.
Chair Koegel, the point is well taken, and it's certainly something as we continue to work on this bill we can look into. I think we may start to bump up against some Commerce Clause issues if we start trying to regulate interstate commerce over the internet. But we can certainly, work with the experts to see if there's some ways that we can put additional safeguards in. Because I share your concern, whether they come from a retail store here in Minnesota or an online store from somebody based in Florida, our underlying concern is both the protection of the consumer and the animal welfare.
Thank you, Representative Norris. Any follow-up, Representative?
No. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion to the bill? It does have another stop in judiciary, so we'll be moving it to judiciary. So hopefully we can, hopefully we can work on it between then. Representative O'Driscoll? Good. All right. Representative Norris, any final thoughts?
Thank you, Chair Koegel and members. I appreciate the really good discussion. I think this bill, as it's before you today, represents compromise. It represents stakeholders coming together. And I think we surfaced some additional ideas that as we continue on, hopefully to judiciary, we can continue to see if we can refine it to achieve those public policy goals even better and making sure that we are keeping bad actors out of Minnesota, protecting consumers, protecting animal welfare, but letting those existing businesses that are doing it the right way continue to operate in our state.
Thank you, Representative Norris. Seeing no further discussion to the bill, I move that House File 2627 as amended be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All those in favor, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion prevails. You're on your way to judiciary. Thank you very much. And that is actually all of our business for the day. Chair O'Driscoll, would you like to give us a preview of tomorrow?
Yes, I would, and I'd also ask if Mr. Smith in the department could maybe come up, I have a question for him on a bill. He could make his way up just to kind of
Mr. Smith?
be here, but it's going to be on House File 4118, the Katiza-Watun bill. Tomorrow, we are going to be looking at House File 3766, which is the Perryman travel insurance. Like the Nudification bill from earlier today, it's something that we had heard. There was a question whether it be a fiscal note. That issue has been resolved, so it should be pretty good for members to look at. We're also going to be taking up the Hewitt and Reimer bill on the Airbnbs. We're also going to have a bill from Representative Allen, 3437, dealing with residential mortgages, and a presentation from the insurance folks to talk a little bit more about how the insurance industry works in the health insurance area. Heard a lot of questions and concerns about profits and different things, so I thought we'd spend a little bit of time working with the industry so members could get some clarification on that. And so with the question that I have on 4118, it's the credit union insurance bill. I just want to see if we think we may need a fiscal note on that, and if we do, will that issue be available tomorrow as to, or even today, we know the answer to that, but for sure by tomorrow, to be able to give consideration to the Katiza-Watun bill to move that for the customers and members of credit unions who are looking for this additional insurance. Madam Chair?
Mr. Smith?
Chair Koegel, Chair Driscoll, we don't anticipate a fiscal cost.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, we don't anticipate there will be a fiscal issue? Okay, then.
That was signified for the record as a shaking of a no.
Well, I hope it holds for more than 24 hours then. Thank you, Mr. Smith, I appreciate it. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. That concludes our business for the day. We are adjourned.